Over the past several years, new doors have opened for the handicapped members of society, and along with the open doors, there's a new awareness of their special needs. First, there were federal guidelines, and then 3 years ago, Oklahoma City established a building code that improved handicapped accessibility. But some builders think the code is too rigid, and they've asked the city to alter it. The change would remove requirements of accessibility from some buildings. Tuttle Gamble of the Building Code Commission says the regulations aren't always practical.
Well, we feel that businesses that will cater to handicapped people will make provisions for the handicapped in ramps or restrooms or whatever it might be. But we're trying to be reasonable on a lot of it from the standpoint of the entire public, and we're thinking of the handicapped people as part of the public too.
But the mayor's committee on the employment of the handicapped thinks the idea is a bad one.
Anytime you start granting exclusions across the board in the code, where are you going to stop? Because if you grant one exclusion, it's easy to grant another one and continue on to a point you don't have a code that truly addresses accessibility standards.
Builders who favor the code change say that at times compliance is not cost-effective. They want flexibility. The people who oppose the change say that you can't put a price on a handicap's right to contribute to society. In the past, City Council has voted in favor of accessibility over flexibility. In 4 more weeks, they'll address the issue again. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at City Hall.
Trick-or-treaters were out in force tonight, but fortunately the treat half of the bargain was all that it appeared by news time. A check with surrounding law enforcement officials showed no unusual activity for the All Hallows Eve.
Trick-or-treat.
Here we are. You want the blue one?
I want red.
You want red? Red we are.
No sabotaged candy or outstanding property-damaging tricks, just the good old door-to-door promotion of tooth decay. Of course, one sheriff's deputy says most mischievous hobgoblins wait until 10 o'clock or so to put the buggies on the roof, but so far everything's quiet. Quiet, that is, except for the older kids who want a little more of a thrill from their Halloween, like a trip through a haunted house. It rattles the nerves and especially the ears, but the money raised goes towards muscular dystrophy. All in all, a happy Halloween. Ted Brown, Action 4.
The rainy weather today may have spoiled some of the outdoor fun for Halloween trick-or-treaters, but it couldn't start to put a damper on the fun had by over 1,000 kids and one large rabbit at the Living Word Academy Halloween Carnival. Each used their own imagination. This Halloweener delighted in being Count Dracula, while this one preferred something a little more bizarre. Today's carnival was for all ages, with something for everyone. There's no doubt our little clown is content with his prize from the fish pond, but a whistle just wouldn't do for a lot of these older kids. They lined up all day for the wet sponge throw. Meanwhile, the trikers had a track all their own, complete with traffic signs. Around and round they went, traveling their own destination. One thing's for sure, everyone felt that rain or shine, a good day was had by all. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
used to be known as a railroad town, the home of the Rock Island. But ever since the county commissioner scandal rocked the state, El Reno now has the added distinction of being the only town whose state representative was implicated in the scandal.
But the residents here don't think that makes their town any different. And so this morning it was life as usual, even though it was election day. Most people went about their daily chores, while some took a moment to go to the polls. The turnout was rather light. The election is to fill the vacancy of Representative Don Feddersen, the former Canadian county commissioner who resigned in the wake of the federal investigation. He is the only legislator implicated so far. One voter seemed to sum up the way a lot of El Reno residents feel about losing Don Feddersen.
He's one of our hometown boys, and he's born and raised here. Everybody knows him, and we just didn't expect it.
Tonight, after the polls close, El Reno will have a new state representative, and so will Canadian County. It was an election the county hadn't planned on, but one that was needed, and the people here feel it could have happened anywhere. Bella Shaw, Action 4 in El Reno. This familiar sign is legal. So is this one. And these. These companies have enough money to advertise and buy big signs. But small businesses in particular have started buying what's called portable trailer signs. They're less expensive, they're movable, the message is changeable. But there's a city councilman carrying a message who's received a lot of complaints about those signs.
They need to be regulated like any other sign and certainly should not be banned completely. We just want them off of the city right-of-ways.
The placement of this sign is illegal. It's on city property, but city council members aren't picking on that type of sign. It's the portable ones they're after.
Well, we've been through this before, and if they start regulating, why, they just never know when to stop. Already have a code enforcement that they could go ahead and enforce, which is $35 a day, and over a period of a week or a month, that's a lot of money to pay for a fine. So they just need to enforce what they've got, not get anything stirred up that's big, can't put out.
So who knows what'll happen? Will the portable sign become a thing of the past? The council insists it's not trying to ban them, but it will be taking a look at other cities to see how they deal with what some call advertisement and what others call an eyesore. Bella Shaw, Action 4. Seagram's products have all but disappeared.
But you won't be able to buy the expensive Chivas Regal Scotch anymore ever since Seagram's pulled its products out of Oklahoma. Instead, you'll have to settle for a cheaper brand, like Green Stripe. Kahlua is a coffee liqueur that is also pulling out of Oklahoma. You can still buy it, but you're limited to one bottle. It won't be long before it's gone too. The same holds true for Tia Maria. The fact is, the liquor pullouts have hurt retail business.
Doesn't make no difference what some of the other people say. It does hurt a little bit because we don't have these high-priced items to sell, so people are changing to a lower-priced items, and this does affect the total cash register sales. And if something isn't done about it, it's just going to continue to get worse. And like I've contended before, the only answer is legislation. If the legislature doesn't do something about it, the state of Oklahoma will suffer in the long run.
So in the meantime, don't be surprised if you see signs asking you to try and change the law. Because while you may be able to buy Hiram Walker today, who knows what sort of off-brand you'll have to settle for tomorrow. 'Tomorrow. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
Supposed to still be armed with .357 Magnum. He still got the gun. Supposedly the one that done the shooting.
30 to 50 units responded to the call that the suspects were being apprehended. They came from all the surrounding cities, from all kinds of enforcement offices, but they had one common cause, to catch the persons who shot their fellow officer. Trooper Sammy Williamson was shot just east of Okemah, around 10 o'clock last night. It's believed that he had pulled a vehicle over on a traffic violation and was approaching the car when the driver shot him. Williamson was able to radio for help and gave this description of the car: a black Monte Carlo with mag wheels. An hour later, that car was spotted in Henrietta, and the chief of police there was alerted.
Well, we was running about 95, and we got to this curve. We've had parties run off here before, see, and I figured they'd missed the curve, and they done that.
4 persons were in the vehicle. 3 of these, 2 females and a male, were taken into custody a few feet from the wrecked car. They were taken to the Okfuskee County Jail where they will be questioned. But the man who is believed to have shot Trooper Williamson escaped on foot. A manhunt was immediately activated. Canine units and a chopper were brought in to search the area. The dogs found tracks in 2 different locations but were unable to surface the suspect. Troopers were paired up and sent to comb an 8-mile area in a giant sweep formation. By 3 o'clock this morning, there was still no sign of the man. The motive for the shooting is not known. It's possible that it could be linked to several stacks of money which were found on the suspects that were taken to jail. A gun was found in the car, a .357 Magnum, which is the same caliber believed to have shot Trooper Williamson. Nevertheless, those at the scene are operating under the assumption that the suspect at large is armed and dangerous. The OHP feels chances are slim that he has left the area because it's so heavily wooded, with few roads leading out. If by chance he does escape the rural area, roadblocks have been set up on the major roads and interstates leaving Henrietta, making it even more difficult for the wanted man to leave unnoticed. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Okay.
Lakeview Middle School students recently got a real feel of patriotism. Over 60 kids were elected to carry the largest handheld flag in the country. The 50 by 76-foot symbol is the proud possession of Navy Chief Officer Mike Jasper. Jasper hopes its presentation will stir respect and devotion from citizens all across the nation.
When I was out in California, I was tired of the people running down our country. And I just thought, well, we have to have something we can show our country that we still are in complete support of it.
He spent $3,000 of his own money to have the Star-Spangled Banner handmade. Jasper wants the red, white, and blue to be special and a constant reminder as the land of the free and the home of the brave. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
He's cutting back in programs that it's taken years to build up for women and poor people. And so now what we see is that we must have these things in the Constitution, and we can never be at the whim of any president to take away our rights.
Sonny Hayes arrived at the U.S. courthouse in McAllister shortly before 10 this morning. Judge Bohannon ordered Hayes to court for 2 reasons: to to explain whether he wanted any attorney to appeal his death sentence and to set the ground rules for his psychiatric evaluation. With his longtime friend, former House Speaker Carl Albert by his side, Judge Bohannon asked Hayes if he felt like talking to the court about his problem. Hayes' non-committal answer prompted the judge to call a private meeting with Hayes, attorneys for his mother, and state prosecutors. Insiders say Sonny never actually asked for legal representation. Nevertheless, Judge Bohannon appointed Mrs. Hayes' attorneys to represent her son. He also ordered Hayes to Eastern Oklahoma State Hospital for a complete psychiatric evaluation. Sonny's new lawyers were obviously happy with today's ruling. They say they'll go to work to try to get Hayes a new trial in Muskogee. However, the mother of the man Sonny Hayes murdered was not pleased with today's hearing.
I would like to see something more done. My son didn't get to go back in a chamber and talk to people. He was at his shop working when this happened. He was shot behind each ear twice, once behind each ear.
So you're disappointed in the way things turned out?
Well, if it was your son, how would you feel?
Who are the victims of rape? And if they survive the assault, how does it affect their lives? The rape victim, we'll call Mary, was just home from work, had locked her door, and was preparing for bed when she heard someone fumbling with the doorknob. She managed to call police, but was frozen with fear.
It's funny. It's just like in the movies. The women, they just sit there, and I always thought, why don't they get up? Why don't they do something? But it's true, you really are that afraid. You really just, you're terrified and you can't do anything. And I just sit there and watched it happen. He breaks the door down and he comes in and you just don't know what to do. You just stand there and you're so afraid. And I didn't realize, it didn't really sink in. I didn't really comprehend what it was that he wanted. You know, I thought maybe he was there to steal something. I didn't realize until later exactly why he was there.
Convicted rapists have been quoted as saying the sexual activity during the rape was not as gratifying as they had fantasized. Few considered the pain and horror they caused the victim.
After talking with some recently, that's one of the things that I asked, and they indicated to me that they come to a point, whether it's stress or feelings that they're not able to handle piling on top of them, that they just don't care. And so they revert to their behavior, which is raping. And they're not really thinking about anything. They don't really see the victim as a person. They don't talk about her in terms of a person. In fact, they don't even acknowledge her. She's just something that is there for them to vent their anger on.
Only a small number of rapists actually achieve orgasm. Most are sexually dysfunctional during the rape, and as a result, few are convicted.
When an assailant does not achieve an orgasm, or if he prematurely ejaculates and this evidence is not collected, then what he can go into court saying is, you know, none of this ever happened.
Bray says she would like to see some changes in our judicial system. She says that in all probability the jurors had never been raped or have any idea what the crime is all about. Bray says that possibly the judge should make that decision, that he would be better informed and more capable of making a rational judgment in this crime of violence. Jerry Adams, Action 4.
Could easily have become a crisis situation, but Tulsa's Water and Sewer Department were alerted to the problem, and they tended to it immediately. The department had received a call that mercury had been found in the water.
As I
Come home from work yesterday afternoon, my son met me at the door and said, "Dad, I have something you need to see." He had it in a container in the garage when I came home from work, and he showed it to me, and I recognized it right away as being mercury. Then I called the emergency number at the city water department here in Tulsa and explained to them the problem that I was having.
Water department officials and the mayor knocked on 100 doors late in the night, warning residents not to drink the water. Crews were brought in to flush water lines out and test for mercury. Less than 24 hours later, it was determined by officials that the situation was under control, and there was no reason for panic. Mercury was found in 4 of the 100 homes, the Williams, and 3 neighboring houses. It's not known how it got there. That's a mystery the city will have to solve.
We don't know. We have people out checking, and we have to continue to try and locate where it might have come from. It's very difficult and, of course, extraordinarily unusual that anything like this would happen.
Even though the scare is considered over, Tulsa's Water and Sewer Department will continue to check the area and answer all requests by residents to have their water sampled and tested. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
It was called Take Back the Night, a way to protest violence against women, particularly the crime of rape. It was a chilly night, but organizers were pleased with the turnout, and they think their purpose was well served, which was to make people aware of the possibility of rape so that they could prevent it from happening.
I think as long as women see this as a unique individual problem, they won't come for help. I'll give you an example. My mother just called the other day, and she lives in New York. A 64-year-old woman in her building was raped. 10 years ago, she would never have told anybody. But the fact that she has some awareness and knowledge about it now, that they're talking about it, she can go to people, her friends, and say, look, this has happened, without her feeling condemned. And I think that's what's helpful about the degree of awareness and the degree of the coverage that rape is getting in the last 10 years and in this community more recently.
Another rally is planned for this spring. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Norman.
I'm Sherry Sellers. As you can well imagine, students here at the University of Oklahoma are not pleased with the thought of a tuition increase. They learned today that the cost of their education is going to go up 30 to 40%.
Today's student is hit from all sides with rising cost. Books, gasoline, food, and housing costs are constantly on the increase. But a tuition hike hits the top of the list.
I think it's a ripoff. I think tuition's expensive enough, and I think it's very hard to just afford to go to any college out of state as it is.
I really don't think they need it. I think it's just that they're having they have more other increases that they've had this year already, and I just don't think they need another one.
The reason why I came here is because it's cheaper than where I am. I come from Missouri, and it's cheaper here than it is there, so maybe a little bit of a problem.
The lower income basis.
Not all students are totally against the increase.
The majority of the students, I think, can't afford to accept a little higher increase in tuition. Maybe not quite as high as they're planning, but some increase I feel could be accepted. With looking at other universities around the state, I mean not the state, but just the country generally, Oklahoma is a fairly low-cost university to attend, and it might be good for them to increase and maybe keep up with inflation.
If approved, the 30 to 40% increase will go into effect next fall. 26,000 University of Oklahoma students will be eagerly awaiting the outcome. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
The State House of Representatives has had a younger look lately. The Oklahoma Intercollegiate Legislature has been inhabiting the chamber of both houses, the Supreme Court, and the governor's office. They aren't running the state, but the organization points with pride to state laws that originally were discussed by their groups. Most of the issues debated and voted on concern students, and today, the Collegiate House voted to adopt the draft.
The Soviet Union is engaging in the greatest arms buildup in the history of the world. NATO has 27 divisions. That's if you include the French, who aren't even a part of the NATO structure. Opposing them, the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact allies have 118 divisions in Central Europe.
The young legislators use some techniques of politicking usually reserved for the big boys. If you're afraid you're on the minority side of the controversy, you attach a popular topic, like pay raises for the military, to the controversial one, like the selective service. If you vote against the draft, you also vote against military pay raises. That's not an easy spot to put anyone in, and the draft passed by a margin of more than 3-1.
That play has been a popular one in the last couple of years, both here in Oklahoma and across the country. And in this case, it looks like the students have learned their lessons. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the state capitol.